Why do new cars lose so much value? You roll around that first intersection, drive it off the lot, you blow that red light, and immediately you've lost 20%. Why? On your way to get insurance, because you probably don't have insurance yet, but you're getting your insurance, you're in a rush, and now all of a sudden, lo and behold, you realize you've lost almost 20% of that car's value. But on top of it, even worse, in 3 or 4 years, the warranty's gone, and now all of a sudden you're stuck with a car that's worth about 60% of what it was brand new. The worst part is, as a ding-a-ling, if I just bought a new car, I just realized that I'm probably underwater, because in most cases, if I'm like most other people, I probably in underwater, negative equity. Yes, in a situation where I had to borrow too much money for too long of a loan term, and then after 3 years, once the warranty's gone, I'm chicken shit and I want to sell or trade that car in. Now all of a sudden I've realized that I owe more than the car's worth on the wholesale market. Things are getting ugly, but the point is, new cars do depreciate so quickly, and there's some strong reasons why. Well, let's break this down. Number one, of course, is supply and demand. Supply and demand is a common factor that we hear about all the time, and we heard so much of it during the 2020 through 2022. Of course, as you get quality used cars, of course, that means those are usually snatched up pretty quickly. And if you want to get something that's actually worth something, or something that's special, or something that's cool, or something that's fresh on the market, you're going to pay more. I mean, we saw people paying all kinds of money. And so increase the demand when there's a low supply. We saw low supply in the early 2020s. And of course, with that meant special models like the new Corvette, the new Bronco, and many other cool models that were coming out meant that the demand was strong, the supply was low, and people overpaid. Well, what does that have to do with depreciation? Well, traditionally, 20 years ago, depreciation wasn't as strong. Cars lasted typically longer, about say 10 or 15 years ago. But more importantly, people didn't pay over sticker. There was a price tag, there was a baseline, and people, I don't know, they generally paid what they paid, or would negotiate, sometimes $5,000 or $5,000, $7,000 under the sticker price. So of course you start at a lower point. So when it depreciates, now you're in a much better position. The problem is now so many people got sucked in by the BS and the nonsense. And now, of course, they paid over. So here's sticker. Now you wanted that new Z06. You're paying this much because that dealer just fast talked you and you got creamed. And now all of a sudden you're starting up here. But here's the baseline. And depreciation still takes the normal toll. So now you're going, instead of here to here, you're going from here to here. You've lost so much more money. You get it? Supply and demand, popular models, people overpaying, brand new, you have much, much bigger drop, of course. And that's a bigger factor. So those kind of models that were popular typically take more of a beating. Another issue is market demand and reliability. Well, reliability is a big one. A lot of people, they want that new car because of reliability. Even though a lot of people don't always want the tech, those buying new cars want to make sure they have the big screens and the latest automatic transmission and fuel economy that matches up. They want all of those widgets. But all of a sudden, they realize that, wait a minute, these older cars don't really have that. So if you've got a car and you've been driving it now, a brand new car, and of course, what the newest technology in 2020 was, is still now leagues behind what we're seeing in 25 and 26. So now what you're getting is this weird demand and this reliability challenge as you roll outside a warranty. The new car still carries that warranty. You don't care about reliability, and most people, they don't. I never really gave two turtle hoots, because reliability, really, once you have warranty, you don't really care. It's pretty much bumper to bumper. They fix your car. No muss, no fuss, no sounds, no dollars out of your pocket. But once that warranty period runs out, that means all of a sudden the warranty's gone, and any little repair is going to cost you money. The worst part is half these goofy cars nowadays have broken parts that just aren't built that well. These modules and these electrics and all of these weird crunchy parts that, are really no better than, I don't know, your latest cell phone that is only good. You've got to update these every 2 or 3 years because they start running out of speed. The battery strength isn't there and they just don't last. Well, the same thing happens with cars. So what ends up happening is, as the car approaches warranty period, the end of the warranty period, of course, that's that point where you see this actual drop in the market. That's a big reason why depreciation really hammers on a lot of cars. More so in that first period, Not so much in the first year to 2 years, because as you notice with a lot of Toyotas, especially the Highlanders and the Camrys and the Corollas, they tend to hold a really strong value. Well, a couple of reasons: of reliability, and they'll be reliable for years. But the other reason for it is for the first couple of years, there's still warranty. So people aren't scared. They'll buy, sell a used Toyota. They'll buy it. They don't care if it's 2 years old, even if it has another year's warranty. So it doesn't depreciate a lot. It's as you get on the back end of that 3-year loan or the warranty period, all of a sudden it falls right off. And so now your space from 0 to 3 years is a much bigger drop. Not that 0 to 1 years or 0 to 2 years, but that full gap of 0 to 3 years or 0 to 4 years. That's where the big hits. That's where you're starting to see the big depreciation, because people are worried about reliability and all these garbage and plastic under the hood that we're seeing a lot of brand manufacturers doing today. And another one, of course, is the new models, the technology. A lot of people are just so bent out of shape about, getting all this latest tech. For me, I like something simple I can fix. If I got a coolant leak, I'm going to go track it down, see where it's dripping, and I can fix it. Same thing with an oil leak. If there's an oil pan and there's oil dripping down the side of the oil pan, I probably just got to remove that, drain the oil, remove the pan, put a new gasket, scrape it up, clean it up, put a gasket, and put the pan back on, fill it up with oil, and we're good. It's simple. Old cars are simple. The problem is, all of these electronics, you need all of these special kits. You need all these test equipment, diagnostics, and special equipment to figure out where the problem is, because it's no longer just about oil and coolant leaks. It's all these other problems that you're going to find, this new technology. But that said, the technology gets old fast, and as I've said already, if you're driving a used car, your chances are you're driving old technology. And a lot of people, even though I like to troubleshoot, I like to fix my own car, there's a reality. Most people don't. I've got a few tools. I've got the know-how, the gumption. I get dirt under my greasy fingernails, and I'm okay with that. But a lot of people aren't. A lot of people are either older. Boomers, we know, is one of the biggest populist groups right now. And boomers don't want to work on their cars, or at least most of them don't as they get older. Younger generations often don't want to work on their cars. Gen Zs don't even want to drive cars, let alone work on their own cars. So now you have a situation where this new technology appeals for people, the millennials. They love it. The millennials are the new technology lovers, right? Boomers, not as much. Haptic controls, no, they don't want it. They don't want capacitive. But you know what? Gen Zs, they love technology. They love all that interaction and those plugins and the ports and the tech and the touch screens. Millennials too. Millennials were really one of the first generations that really got on board with that. Now, as boomers are slowly phasing out of the market, you're seeing a bigger market demand by millennials and Gen Zs and even some Gen Xs in there. And so what does that mean? A stronger demand for technology. So as your vehicle's getting a little older, that's going to hurt the actual value in some cases. Like I said, I love fixing my old junk, but not everybody else does. And a lot of those newer generation just wants that newer technology. And if your car doesn't have a backup camera and a big screen, a lot of people aren't buying it. So generally, if you've got a 4-year-old Mercedes, it probably doesn't have the same technology that a brand new Mercedes has. And therefore, a lot of people, they want the new. They'll just go to brand new instead and leave the old ones out there. And so what that does is push the value of those used cars down. Wear and tear, another one. Wear and tear is another one where you got to think about, right? As a new car, everything's good, everything's fresh, fluids are perfect, gaskets don't leak, electrics work, batteries topped up, tires, everything's perfect. But as these vehicles age, tires wear out. If you put 3 or 4 years on a car, tires could be down to 30, 40%, brakes might be 30, 40%. All those trips down those rough roads, like this garbage city. The city I live in here, it's just potholes from corner to corner, end to end. And you're taking out ball joints and bushings and A-arms and control arms. I mean, everything's taking a beating. So wear and tear means that buying a 5-year-old car, it's already going to feel loose. It's going to make clunking, strange noises. That cold start might have a little bit of a rattle because of timing chain and guide ramps and all these other things mean that a used car has wear and tear. A lot of people don't want that. So they're looking at buying brand new. And so that's another big factor why, as a vehicle ages, especially once you're out of warranty, people kind of are more leaning towards buying new. And because with incentives, interest rates, finance rates, lease rates or have been a little bit more competitive lately. Now people are looking at that, well, you know what? I can get a brand new Toyota for, whatever it is. I can get a brand new Toyota Highlander for $52,000, say in Canada price. Or I could buy this 2-year-old Toyota Highlander and I can get that car for $50,000, a couple grand off, and it's got 35,000 miles on it. And people are paying for that is beyond me, but hey, to each their own, I guess, right? You want to get sucked in and get absolutely hammered, that's your choice. At the end of the day, I don't like to get hosed, screwed. I look for max value. And so while I love used cars, buying a used Toyota that's 2 years old, you're getting sucked in. Like, look around, check out the deals. If you think that that's a good deal, well, sorry about that. Here's my takeaway on this. With some cars, you either buy them brand new or you buy them 10 years of age. To buy a 1 or 2 year old car, you're paying the vast majority of that price. The only win there is you might get a second set of rims and some paint protection film, which would cost you if you bought that car new. But honestly, wear and tear is something people worry about. Lease rates, finance rates also are much better when you're buying a new car. But of course, as what starts to happen on used cars, if you're trying to sell the car you bought new, 3 years later trying to sell it on the used market, a lot of people are saying, well, wait a minute, I can get a brand new one at 4%, or this used one that's 2 years old, maybe it only has 30,000 miles and maybe it's 5 grand less, but now I'm stuck with these higher interest charges and now it's going to level off and equal the same after that 5-year loan term. What the hell's the point of that? So now that sort of puts downward pressure on those used cars, right? And so now if you're doing that, of course, now that differential becomes greater from new to used, hence bigger depreciation. Interest rates, that's a big one. Dealer market and profit. We spoke about that. People love getting hooped. I think about, I don't know, the last time I walked into a car lot and I saw some of these people, this couple was getting fast talked into buying this car because, there was something that they were getting excited. You could tell the wife, and I just saw this on the weekend, the wife was over there chirping the husband. The husband didn't really want it. It was this minivan that they were looking for. The wife was chirping, we need that, I want that, we need that. And the husband was rolling his eyes, shaking his head. But you know what? What I saw when I stood back, what I did see was the salesperson facilitating that conversation, telling them subliminally almost, just sliding in those odd little comments about, yeah, this would be great. You guys look young. You're probably going to have some more young family. This definitely would be a great vehicle for you. But what's even better? Ski racks. Because when those kids, like my kids, and he would say this, like my kids, when they were 3 and 4 years old, I started getting them to skiing. It's the best sport to help family bonding. So he started selling them on ski racks. Then he started selling them on all those little cameras you hang on the back, or those little video screens you hang on the back of the seats, the headrests. Started selling them on products like that. And he even sold them on all kinds of interior floor mats and extra paint protection film. And even more importantly, even some like this carpet protection that they spray on. He sold them on the bill of goods, and all on the premise of selling an emotion to the family. It was absolutely brutal what I saw. And this salesman was making money hand over fist. The wife was chirping, the husband was rolling his eyes. At the end of the day, they cut the check. And so markups, dealer markups, we're talking about market adjustment fees were big back 2-3 years ago. That was getting out of control, and profit margins were through the roof. A lot of these dealers were literally putting all kinds of extra margins on things. They'd put, fully load up a vehicle, park it on the lot with the big lift kit and the big boots, aftermarket exhaust, spray and box liner. And then they were selling it as is. And it was a hard truck, an LTZ or something you were trying to find. And then somebody comes in and they're like, I want that truck. Well, that's the way you got to say it. We've already outfitted. It's good to go. Are you good? They set up financing. They extended it to a longer loan term to knock the payments down. And that young kid that was 26 years old, fresh off the oil rigs, just had enough money to meet the criteria. Lo and behold, he bought that grossly overpriced, highly loaded up truck. And this was going on. But this is something why depreciation is so heavy, because all of these parts and pieces that go into these vehicles on markup, and that essentially pushes that sticker price up. The sticker's here, but all these extras puts the price here as new. And then Come 5 years, it just comes back down to where it should have fallen into the normal depreciation curve. So this is just how it works. And the other piece, you don't want to feel like a gimp, right? You want to feel like a winner, like you've made it, right? You've made it. Yeah, I've made it. And so a lot of people just like that new car. Like that new car, so they pull up their driveway, their neighbors are envious looking homes. They're freaking, and they're getting mad because the neighbor's driving a new car. Well, then they go and buy a new car. And then the other Joneses buys another car. And then those Joneses eventually, a year later, buy a new car. And this goes on and on. But it's the idea of trying to look like you have a new car. The problem is, as soon as you start driving it, it's a used car. And it's no longer new anymore, and it loses that sort of glitz and glamour, and the new model comes out, and you've got the old version. Now you feel like a loser, right? A big loser. Yeah, I know what it's like. Been there, done that. I had somebody commented the other day at the set of lights, "Ha, nice old truck, buddy. Bought and paid for it, pal." That's all I could say. But at the end of the day, people sometimes feel like they need to ante up to buy something new. Therefore, it ultimately pushes people into newer cars. They're more motivated to sell their old junk, and the old junk sometimes, out of duress, they feel stressed out. They want to make it move fast. They want to buy their new car quick, fast, and in a hurry. They might have actually been influenced by a message that clown said to me by calling my old truck out. So that would influence some people, and so they went out and buy something new. What that does is push prices down. When people are desperate, they want to unload their new car. They trade it in for almost nothing. And therefore, you've seen even more depreciation. So that's the bottom line. The major reasons why a lot of these cars, the new cars, depreciate so hard. I hope that summarizes for you. At the end of the day, it's a real literal clown shoe out there. It's a literal Ringling Brothers circus, if you will. It's just hilarious how this market goes on, and how people can't see through all of this mess and the smoke and mirrors and hey, look at that. What is that? Is that a good deal? What? And the people all look over there. It's all that shiny thing, right? Like a crow. Like a crow flies in, sees that next shiny thing, and it attracts them right in there. That's what people are doing, and that's what's been going on, and really badly since 2020. But this is ultimately why new cars depreciate so much. Anyway, drop a line. Hope to see you real soon. All right, bye-bye.